Shalom, shalom. This is Rabbi Moshe Tero with the Ways of Israel, continuing in this study of the letter for the ages based on the work of Ramban and Rabbi Nachmanides. We're going to take a look at chapter 22, which in fact is video number 22 in this series. And we're going to take a look at the idea or the concept of considering the other with the benefit of the doubt and considering what could be. If he is poor and you are richer or wiser than he, consider that he may be more righteous than yourself. If he sins, it is a result of error, while your transgression is deliberate. In other words, giving the other person the benefit of the doubt of what could be. The Talmud in Shabbat 151b relates that Rabbi Chia told his wife, when you see a beggar approaching the door, don't wait for him to knock. Rather, run out, offer food to him. In this merit, perhaps, our children must ever beg. They will be treated in the same respect in a considerate fashion. She responded, are you then cursing our children that they are to be beggars? No, Rabbi Chia replied, but it is inevitable that some form of poverty visit every family in the course of its history. As it says, and it's interesting the word he uses, Galgalihu Shehoret, it's a wheel that rotates through the world. In other words, and the idea of rotating is the idea of reincarnation or returning back, as it were. So if one sees his wealth as tenuous, he equips himself to maintain a perspective upon his life, subtle shades of charity, and thus we never know what the wheel that rotates may come upon us or may come upon our children. So, Pela Yoetz cites the Midrash which states that one must stand when a poor man passes by. Stand up in acknowledgement that the Almighty Himself accompanies the steps of the poor. As the psalmist says, Ki yamod limin evyon, for he who stands at the right side of the destitute. Psalms 109, verse 31. Similarly, the author writes that one should be careful to avoid any subtle discrimination against men of lesser means. In personal celebration, he advises one should avoid allowing sitting arrangements to reflect class distinction. In other words, there are many congregations that will automatically put the wealthy people in the front, closer to the bima or to the area where the Torah is to be read, while putting the people that are poorest towards the back. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein was especially attuned to the psychological effects of his action in dealing with the poverty-stricken people. A car pulled up one time in front of Mesivta Tiferet in Jerusalem to take the Rosh HaYeshiva, Rav Moshe Feinstein, to an important meeting. There was no time for delay. As Rabbi Moshe Feinstein was about to get into the car, a poor man asked him for charity. Rav Moshe gave him some money, but the beggar persisted to speaking with the Rosh Yeshiva. As the man drew out of the conversation, in the waiting, the driver became more and more impatient. A few students attempted to tell the pauper that the Rav Moshe was in a great hurry. The sage signaled for him to go away. And then, minutes later, Rav Moshe excused himself and shook his hand with the beggar and finally got into the car. Rav Moshe explained to the driver and to his students, you must understand that to this man, the conversation meant more than money. My mitzvah of tzedakah included showing him that I care about what he thinks and that I am not too busy to speak to him. This is what becomes so important. I always try to listen to everyone who contacts me, to give them the benefit of the doubt, because you never know what's on their heart, what's on their mind, what's distressing them. And Rav Moshe Feinstein was of this type of character in which he did this, sensing the dignity of humanity. Through his conduct, Rav Moshe Feinstein taught that his mentally ill must be treated with dignity. One day his shi'ur in Mesivta Tiferet, Jerusalem, was interrupted by a man who sat reviewing the Sidra in loud voice. A student went over to the man and told him that he was disturbing the Rosh Yeshiva shiur. However, the man, seemingly completely oblivious to what he had just been told, continued his chanting just as before. Several students then suggested to Reb Moshe that they escort the man out of the Beit HaMikdash. No, no, came the reply. He doesn't know what he's doing. I will speak louder. And so the shiur continued with Reb Moshe speaking as loud as he could while the man went on chanting undisturbed. Indeed, Reb Moshe also taught that it is not only Jews whom must one respect, even non-Jews. There was an old Russian who worked as a janitor in Mesivta Tiferet, Jerusalem, and he spoke a little bit of English, and few paid much attention to him. One day he suffered from such a toothache and walked around with a handkerchief tied around his cheek. When Reb Moshe met the janitor in the hallway, he stopped and spoke to him in Russian for a few minutes. When the conversation ended, the janitor walked away happier than anyone can ever remember seeing him. A military secret. Rav Eliyahu Moshe Shishkal, Rav Moshe's son-in-law, followed his father-in-law's example of treating all of God's creatures, God's creation, with respect. Rav Shishkal befriended a mentally ill person who imagined himself to be both a medical genius as a high-ranking army official. The odd Jew enjoyed being addressed as the professor. Once Rav Shishkal invited the professor to his home, and the professor had brought only a transistor radio, which he proudly showed off. He turned the radio to its highest volume and proceeded to switch from station to station over and over again. The professor, who evidently enjoying himself immensely, assumed that the others enjoyed this as well. Rav Shishkal did not have the heart to dampen this man's spirit by asking him, turn it off the radio. Suddenly Rav Shishkal had an idea. He put his ear to the radio and said, Professor, are these military secrets that I hear? Yes, Professor shouted excitedly. The military radio, and it carries military secret. Well, said Rabbi Shishkal, as you know, I am not a member of the military. I probably should not be hearing these things. You are right, Professor replied and promptly turned off the radio. Puzzling departure. Consider that he may be more righteous than yourself. By honoring all men, despite their outward status, one fulfills the mitzvah of Betzedek Tishpot Amichtecha. You shall judge your fellow man with fairness or favorably, as found in Vayikra 19:15 or Leviticus 19, chapter 19, verse 15. Rabbi Aryeh Levin of Jerusalem excelled in his ability to see no evil in his fellow Jew. He once related the following incident helped him to adopt this quality. Once Rabbi Aryeh attended the funeral of a certain Reb Eliezer, a man who had been honest and compassionate distributor of charity funds. A man named Reb Shmuel, the deceased Reb Eliezer's best friend for over 30 years. He had also participated in the funeral procession. As Reb Aryeh watched in astonishment, Reb Shmuel abruptly left the funeral cottage to enter a flower shop. Moments later, the man emerged and continued walking along with the burial procession, but carrying a clay pot. Now, Reb Aryeh was deeply disturbed by this apparently callous behavior. Later that day, he approached Reb Shmuel for abandoning his best friend's funeral. And Reb Shmuel explained, for years, I've been visiting a Jew stricken with leprosy. Yesterday he died. The doctors at the sanitarium, who are non-Jews, fear for contagion, so they ordered that the lepers are non-Jews or the leper's clothing and possession be burned, including the man's pair of tefillin. After I pleaded with one of the doctors, he agreed to spare the tefillin if I could arrange to have them safely buried before noon today. In order to satisfy both the medical and halakhic requirements, I needed an earthen container, and it was because of this that I was compelled to leave the funeral to buy the flower pot so we can put the tefillin in it. And since that incident, said Rabbi Aryeh Levin, I firmly resolved to judge every person favorably. You see, what the man went out to do was a mitzvah. It was an incredible mitzvah. Had he judged him unfairly, he may have missed that point. How often we judge our fellow man. I'm includedly guilty in this, that we think that he's going to do something wrong, and in fact it was a mitzvah the person was about to do, or a good unknown to us. So God help us to have Rahmanas, not only on our fellow human being, but in ourselves, in the way we perceive other people as they walk forward. For this same reason, Rabbi Nachman says, if he is poor, then you are richer or wiser than he, consider that he may be more righteous than yourself. And if he sins, it's a result of error, while your transgressions are deliberate. May God bless you and all of yours. And remember, be part of the ways of Israel. Give tzedakah. Practice the idea of separating from yourself at least a 10% of your income to give to charity. That's a good way to start showing and practicing tzedakah. Shalom, shalom, and may God bless you and all of yours today.